Got it. Webinar is being started. Okay. Welcome in, everybody, as you come in this evening. Webinar is being started. It would be great if you could all say in the chat where you're coming in from this evening. Welcome in, welcome in. Be awesome if you could share in the chat where you're coming from this evening. Tennessee, wow. Welcome. I'm just gonna jump in and get started because I'm so excited to hear these artists this evening. Welcome to Stewart's Opera House's hosting of Spoken and Heard. My name is Devin Sudman. I am the Education Director here at Stewart's. I have black curly hair, light brown skin, dark brown eyes. I am wearing my black maestro hat, my black Stewart's Opera House t-shirts, a black jean jacket, and black rimmed glasses. Stewart's Opera House is committed to our mission to be a regional leader in the arts community, a center for public expression, and an economic development partner for Southeast Ohio. We acknowledge that our historic theater sits on the traditional homelands of the Shawnee, Adena, and Hopewell peoples. We recognize the ever-present systemic inequities that stem directly from this painful history of colonization, and we commit ourselves to respecting and reconciling this long history of injustice. Stewart's is committed to being more intentional in the role we play for racial justice. We also commit to being more inclusive of people historically and currently marginalized based on identity, including gender, sexuality, class, and heritage. We wish to publicly express that hate and systemic oppression have no home in our organization. I will be dropping a donation link here in the Stewart's or in the chat box. And you can also visit our website to find more about upcoming events and educational opportunities. I will be monitoring the chat this evening, as well as keeping an eye on the YouTube live stream. And now, for what's most important, I want to introduce Carrie Gunter Seymour, your host this evening. Carrie Gunter Seymour is the Poet Laureate of Ohio and a recipient of the 2021 Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellowship. Her poetry includes A Place So Deep Inside America It Can't Be Seen, which won the 2020 Ohio Poet of the Year Award, and the chapbook Serving. Her poems have appeared in numerous journals and publications, including Rattle, One, the LA Times, and the New York Times. Her work has been featured on Verse Daily, Cultural Daily, World Literature Today, and Poem a Day. A ninth generation Appalachian, she is the editor of I Thought I Heard a Cardinal Sing, Ohio's Appalachian Voices, and the Women of Appalachia Project's anthology series, Women Speak. She's an artist in residence for the Wexner Center for the Arts and a 2021-2022 Pillar of Prosperity Fellow for the Foundation of Appalachian Ohio. You can visit her website at www.carriegunterseymourpoet.com. Please join me in welcoming Carrie Gunter Seymour. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Devin. Devin, thank you so much. And all the fine folks at Stewart's Opera House. And I thank all of you for joining us this evening. And those of you who will end up joining our live stream program from Stewart's YouTube page and my personal Facebook and Twitter posts will be available just after tonight's event. And you can share that with your friends so they will know too. I also want to give a special thanks to our ASL interpreters tonight, Nico and Joe, and they work their fine magic as dancers of words. And I want to thank you also, Devin and Stewart's Opera House, for setting up closed captioning as well this evening, or live transcript. So I am a pale-skinned woman with long, straight, I say blondish, but it's more gray hair. I wear glasses, and the rims are tinted a dark green. I'm wearing a light periwinkle t-shirt with a sweater that is also periwinkle, but about 2 shades darker than the t-shirt. And my backdrop is botanical, and my lighting can sometimes become a bit moody, which is a matter of circumstance because of where my little studio is. As soon as it gets dark, it can get difficult for me to light the room. It's National Poetry Month. I am so excited, and I have 3 astounding poets who are going to share their work with us tonight. Straight out of Knoxville, Tennessee, Linda Parsons and Stella Sue Lee, along with Kentucky's own Bernard Clay. So be ready to laugh, cry, grit your teeth, and cheer. You can find the links to our guests' books on the website, and that's Stewart's website. And it's on the homepage. Then click the arts education link and then scroll down. But I'll also place the links in the chat box for those of you tonight who wish to purchase. And I really thank Devin for holding up my book tonight, because since it is National Poetry Month, I'm going to put the link to my book in there as well, because we are all buying books like crazy, right? And I would like to support my small press as well. And then after our event tonight, directly after the readings, we'll have a short question and answer session. So feel free to type a question in the Q&A for later, or you can also put one in the chat window later. And now we begin. Stella Sue Lee is editor emerita at Rattle. 2 of her books, Firecracker Red and Crossing the Double Yellow Line, were contenders for the Pulitzer Prize. Her current collection, Queen of Jacks, New and Selected Poems, was released in 2020. Dr. Lee was the winner of the Grand Prize of Poetry to Aid Humanity in 2013 by Al-Falala, Malaysia. She teaches privately and serves on the board of Tennessee Mountain Writers. Dr. Lee received her PhD from Honolulu University. She was born in the year of the dragon. So I met Stella Sue Lee and Linda Parsons, who we will hear from later as she shares a bit of her work, at the very same moment. Because I got it into my head that this wee Appalachian woman from Albany, Ohio, should jump in her car and read some poems for a project Stella Sue and Linda were curating there in Knoxville called WordStream, the weekly writer's voice. And it was sponsored by WDVX 89.9 radio. And I was taken up by the romance of the early radio programs being beamed out of Nashville, highlighting the likes of Mother Maybelle Carter and Hank Williams. And so I queried them about going down, and they said, well, heck yes. So off I went across several state lines, thanks to my iPhone and the GPS. To say they made me feel incredibly welcome is an understatement. And I've had a marvelous time during my visit there. And I'm so pleased that wonderful friendships have grown from our time together. Stella Sue Lee has made many a poet's dreams come true through her editorships and immersive workshops. And it is my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Stella Sue Lee.
Good evening, Carrie. Good evening, Linda and Bernard and the ASL interpreters. I guess we should describe what we're wearing. I'm blonde and blue-eyed, and I wear plain glasses, no rims. I'm wearing a black shirt, blouse, and I guess that's all you're going to get to see of me. So I will start my reading now. Broken worlds. Grinding my molars, I fly in sleep as the dream materializes into making a choice between that life or this, fragmented and unrelatable. I call my husband's name, but his sleep remains unbroken long into the faded gloom. Coyotes howl beneath a fat moon. Many of us wait for morning to sink our toes into soft earth. Mid-climb out of a violet arc of darkness, I think about my choices long made, some well executed, others, well, let's agree to call them experience. I rise into yet another day of broken glass, murder, rape, children separated from their parents, frightened law enforcers, those entitled who think they can enslave, bombed cities, splintered political systems, the imprisoned, starved, and maligned. All morning, my teeth ache with the cold light. Not even a moon to give its mute concern. That noise is my cell phone alert. The security camera shows two men working the keypad at our garage door. The door starting to open. The garage beginning to brim with light, and I can't find the speaker to say anything, to shriek at the intruders, tell them I see what they are doing and I'm calling the police. But I can't remember how to call 911 or who to call for reinforcements. Fragments of the dream tear through my bedroom. Night returns wearing a black shawl. There is no moon. Nothing but neon numbers on a clock whispering into the silent morning. 3 a.m. approaches unapologetically. I leave our bed, walk in darkness to the bathroom. Cold water falls from a faucet, runs through my fingers until I gather courage enough to bring a handful up to my face. I think about those men, how to describe them to the police, how they should be charged with breaking and entering my dreams. Who are they? I return to bed, hostage to the cold mortuary night. Fishing. The summer I was 20, Father was sober. We fished off the pier. I wanted him to bait my hook. He said, "Kid, learn to do it yourself. Life gets messy." After summer is over, after he starts drinking again, "Marry young, kid," he says. "Blondes fade fast." My father. He called me kid or sis or queenie if he thought I was too full of myself. "Still keeping your legs crossed, sis?" "Yes, Daddy." "Good girl." Finally, I was allowed to date. Tommy Chapman and I, already through the front door. "Son?" "Yes, sir." "No swapping spit with my daughter." A morning impossible. We wake to everything so neat after the kiddies and I slept in a huddle, comforting each other. What more could we have done with my husband away? Only 4 days, I tell myself. Happy we are still together, still loving this marriage, these cats. Only today, there is almost an impossible darkness of grief that gathers, fogging the windows. A cold, no heat seems to penetrate. My niece stayed with us one summer when she was quite young, and so this is for her. Girl. She wears short shorts, long legs, skin so smooth. The word peachy comes to mind. Men turn their noses to the fresh morning of her thighs, swell of breasts under thin tee, hair like sunshine, streaked with lightning. The girl can't be more than 14, almost ready to reproduce. Men know this without knowing even her name. Shaky ground. How meddlesome the wind, narrowing to steal beneath the door, sneak between the louvers. A distant cloud is blowing up to thunder us silly and has sent the stars scurrying. The bare maples tremble with each stab of light, every boom to another stab of light. Leaves scatter and thrash about. A white birch kneels, her spindly arms frantic in the air. When a knock arrives at the door, I imagine it to be the postman. Imagine inviting him in, fixing tea, perhaps. When I open the door, wind rushes past to ransack the room before finding a place to settle. I fix tea and frown upon my solitude, how I've cultivated a quietness of room and grown unsettled as the weather. A labored, polished life. Amid the rush I call my life, I stop at an outdoor cafe on the square and order coffee with cream. I never drink coffee with cream. A man with darting eyes searches for some unseen foe, then joins our small cluster of single tables on the patio. He orders coffee, black, the way I drink it. Uncomfortable, perhaps, at being alone, he sits in full view, looks at his phone, writes in a journal, and appears agitated. I become weary of people going about their day, coffee with cream, the nervous man, all of it. I think of my cousin, stage 4, dying, the cancer displacing her a little more each day. I wonder what death tastes like. I pay for the coffee I've left on the table, coffee with cream, that not so great experiment. So not me. Trying hard now not to be me. Out of nowhere. This morning, the memory of hiding in a closet, 7 years old, my father in the kitchen of that small California court apartment past midnight. Across the center pathway, all the lights of the other houses dark, and him with yet another freshly poured drink, talking to the dead men in his unit, back, riding waves towards Omaha Beach, those rolling waves, the boat about to fall open, that trembling boat. Sweet Mother of Jesus, into the cold they went, rifles above their heads. Have mercy. Pray for us all in our hour of need. Dutch masters. I've not mentioned this till now, but the night my father died, the hospital gave me some things. Beside the clothes he'd worn, there was a cigar box. Nothing much. A man sleeping in doorways travels light. When I opened the box, his Social Security card was on top, ragged around the edges. Under the card, receipts from a paint store and my wedding picture, whiskey stained, corners bent from being propped up against one thing or another. Yet there I sit on a Louis XIV divan, so young, white gown spread to show off lace and seed pearls. There was a picture of my brother too, taken when he was about 12. One knee planted on home plate, a fierce eye to the camera. At the bottom, 3 quarters, a dime, and a 1959 cent piece. That's all she wrote, he would have said. You live your heaven and hell right here on earth, kid. Pay attention to the details. Lying in a darkened room at night, letting the past live through me. It is true. My father died screaming my name. The sound flew from his throat on waves of antiseptic and scrubbed raw floors, wafting into AM hours 60 years ago. And I'm still not over it. Still, the sound carried on midnight quiet has followed me from coast to mountains, across Great Lakes to settle in dreams. And I run to his bedside, watch his soul travel with that last breath. Now, a whisper. Flat on my back. I look up to identify shapes that appear out of a concrete ceiling. A small child holds out her hands. A puppy with black eyes and a slight imperfection for its nose. There are many others to keep me company as light plays from the cars 6 stories below. An old woman, her mouth round with surprise. A boat floating in ripples made by the poor. Once, when I was feverish, I saw the most amazing thing. It was early morning, I think. The ceiling became liquid. Waves lapped at walls, but later, the concrete seemed to have set again, and I didn't worry enough to sort it out. That night, there were church bells. I slept in uneven shadows, woke hungry. The longest day. I'm not happy, I told a therapist. I have no place to write. I didn't mention a friend said I could use her guest house. A church down the road offered a pew. My husband said I could use his studio, but those won't do. I need solitude. No one waltzing through on the way to life. I can't write with a cat in my lap. I've tried bedrooms, living rooms. I would be happy with a place to write, but it has to be the right place. No one smiling, asking if I need a refill on my coffee. No, I was brought up better than to say, just go away. So tonight, I've come to the 5th floor deck of our loft. Far below, notes from a cello waft up and settle around me. It's summer solstice, my birthday, damn near dark. A bat just flew by, and katydids are rubbing their wings together, or whatever they do to make that razor noise. I find them distracting, but not quite as distracting as a cat in my lap, making little star feet all over my body. My birthday. So many now. It's become an embarrassment. I think about my mother, dead 50 years, how after the funeral, her sister said, "Your mother always was a turd of misery." I am not my mother. Puget Sound. 9 days walking wooded paths, sleeping in rooms built during World War II, meant for officers who thought Japanese submarines would slide through dark of night by way of Puget Sound. I've explored bunkers and cannons still in place, ravishingly abundant woods, beaches of driftwood and shells. We quarry up 3 times a day for meals. That first night, grilled salmon caught that day, served on a bed of wild rice with vegetables plucked from the ground that very morning. Wild berry pie. 9 evenings later, fresh, no longer applied, and Milo, our chef, looms behind steam tables, just waiting for negative comments. And when it's said, when someone can't stand it any longer, Milo's face turns red, the appearance of having been boiled, his eyes the color of cognac set ablaze, his mouth pinched with cayenne. He screams, "You damned writers, you all think you're some kind of Picasso." How to hold your arms when you're in love. Time wants to show me a different country. It says that North and South can join and take away separation, so that one man, one woman can live in a place both call home. Home is wherever they are. Family will become the common denominator, and time will allow this gift in a million different ways. I have saved for this day, tucked my love away in museums and churches of my heart, knowing one day a love that can endure for all time would step forth. This is the way I hold my arms when I'm in love. Outstretched, palms up, sending all the light I can manufacture to learn our natures and become one. South on I-65, take the Lewisburg Pike turnoff. My husband is away, and although I had been looking forward to restoring order in the house and finding a new home for his miscellaneous piles of papers and magazines, now I find it unnerving to live in such neatness. He calls to inform me he is in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and tells me tomorrow he'll reach his destination. The cats don't like his absence, and I'm sure I don't either. He says he has sighted a ghost town off the highway, and although he searches, he can't find a road that will take him there. It is very clear to me that without him, there is no home. With him gone, we are a ghost town. I text him the directions to home. Forget the ghost town, I say. We are alive and waiting for you to return. Because it's dark. Sometimes I hear the front door open, close. This happens at night. House dark, kittens asleep, my husband warm beside me, and I could swear I am awake. I don't bother getting up, not anymore. No, I never see anything out of the ordinary. My wandering just wakes the cats, adds to their confusion. Morning? Not morning. Morning? When my daughter was very young, she would wake screaming at night. Of course, I would run to her. Once I asked why she screamed, and she said, because it's dark. I told her stars bring us the only light at night so we can sleep. Oh, she said, and that was the last time she ever woke screaming. I've thought about a chair under the doorknob to end any open and closing business. But then too, could it be my daughter or my father? What if the dead come to me at night, knowing that I'm awake, waiting? Front porch sitting. It has been a brutal summer. I could almost forget, except for the testimony of parched plants and bushes scorched by sun. Even now, the sun hides behind tall trees, backlighting those by the creek path. There's a coyote's den there. Pups announce their presence during full moon nights. My mother walks up the front steps and sits heavily in an opposing chair as night closes in. The dead seem to have little to say, so we don't say much of anything, for not knowing where to start. When everything is encompassed by the pitch black, I return inside and leave her sitting there. Morning bears witness to each crushed cushion. Avalanches. What I like best is hugging him, that moment when my face is buried in his neck, my arms not meeting around him, his warmth. Then I put things away, start the washer, feed cats. I make a list of things that need to be done. Clean everything. Everything needs to be cleaned every day, and lists. I read those lists between hugs and coffee. Order, bed made, clean bath, clothes put away, meals, gathering for meals, lists, and bills. Mails bring bills and lists of students, day lists, night lists. Look out the window, everything orderly, hugs, sleep, new day of lists. See how light avalanches through tall windows? And the last poem for this evening. How long is one man's time on earth? How long must the life of a wanderer last? Tufu. A river runs through the Biltmore Estates. It's overflowed its banks on Monday. More rain is predicted by nightfall. Walking paths disappear into murky waters. Canada geese ride the river where tall grass rises from the flow. It's peaceful, serene even. Gray clouds billow above and quickly change form. The shape of our lives is like this. We continue to ride the currents. It's possible to be at the beginning of some grand adventure or at the end. Thank you very much.
My goodness, Stella Sue. Oh my. I took some notes, and I have to say, for me, these beautiful poems about your father just struck me so deeply. Starting out giving us all morning, my teeth ache with the cold light. And then later your daddy saying, "Marry young, kid, blondes fade fast." Right to the gut. And then you're making a comment, "I wonder what death tastes like." And then this beautiful, and I'm probably not quoting it word for word, but this morning I hide in the kitchen, my father, another fresh drink, talking to the men in his unit. And being a military mama, of course, that just got me. And there's this lovely visual of your brother with one knee planted on home plate and a fierce eye to the camera. And so we know that both you and your brother made it out of that time with your father. And your father saying, "We live a heaven on earth, kid. Pay attention to the details," making you strong, because you are a strong woman. We know that. And then my father died screaming my name.
Yeah.
I'm still not over it, you said. His last breath now, a whisper. All of the poems were gorgeous, Stella Sue, but you're being willing to share that very intimate time. Thank you so much. Just gorgeous.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Stella Sue. It's a pleasure having you this evening.
Thank you.
I hope you look in the chat window. There's some beautiful things for you waiting there.
I will. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to move forward. Bernard Clay is a Louisville, Kentucky native who received an MFA in creative writing from the University of Kentucky Creative Writing Program and is a member of the Afroluction Poets Collective. His work has been published in various journals and anthologies, and that's him being modest by not listing them all, believe me. He currently resides on a farm in Eastern Kentucky, and I hear he is very, very, very busy with that. And English Lit is his first book, and there's a lot of story behind that as well that I think he will probably share with us this evening. And I've not had the pleasure of meeting Bernard prior to this event, but he came to me so highly recommended by so many. And his collection, English Lit, has been described as stunning, a book that journeys through the poet's youth and the pain and trauma of poverty and the race and racism while living in the now demolished Southwick housing projects on the west end of Louisville. So then, of course, I had to read his work, and I will tell you all, there may not be a dry eye among us after Bernard takes the stage, but wait, we'll see, right? Please welcome the amazing Bernard Clay.
Hey, thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Stewart Opera House and Devin, for having me. It's a great honor. Thank you, Nico, for providing the ASL. And also, I'd like to thank my press, Old Coast Swallow Press, for taking a chance on a book from an unknown Kentucky boy. And it's a pleasure to read with also you, Linda, and Stella Sue. It's also a great honor to read with you guys also. So I'm gonna read from my collection. It's like Carrie said, it's about my childhood mostly. And so I'll start out with a poem that centers around my first experiences in a school where I lived in Louisville, and busing was a big thing there. And so this sort of exemplifies busing and talks about white flight a little bit. It's called Field Trip. A first grade excursion to the zoo becomes a safari through the neighborhood that surrounds the school that most of my classmates are bused to every morning. We barrel through dense poverty and lush decay. Some kids bury their gaze into seat backs like ostriches. Some kids leer out the pains, eyes popping like lemurs. Some kids look back at me like I'm a gazelle chased by a cheetah, surrounded by lions. Misreading their attention, I acted as an exotic guide, answering questions about the flora and fauna, even pointing out my home to a collective gasp and a pity glance. Then the chaperone mom steps in. I lived there too, before this place went to hell. All the kids' mouths are agape like hippos. Then the mom's face turns baboon butt red, and she apologizes for swearing. The rest of the way through the industrial parks, we fog the windows, singing Old MacDonald, like a flock of egrets and one crow, until we get to where the real animals are. Thank you. And I apologize, I didn't describe myself. I'm a brown-skinned gentleman with glasses and a beard, dark black beard and a dark black afro and a blue shirt. My background is a liquor cabinet that's sort of fuzzy. So that's my description of where I'm at. This next poem sort of talks about my aversion to being a Seventh-day Adventist, and also my affinity for nature. It's called Iroquois Park. On some fall Saturdays, after hours of being trapped in a prison of droning designed to shame me, Mom broke norms and Sabbath. We leave the stained glass early, invite my BFF to sleep over, pick up a box of wings and wedges from Indies, avoiding Dad for the afternoon, and heading out to that mound south of the city. After eating, while Mom lay on the picnic table and read long neglected Jet magazines, LaRon, Vet, and I approached that hulking hill before us that we liken to a porcupine leviathan, like the one that ate Jonah. And we ran full speed at it, got swallowed behind its jawless row of tulip poplar teeth, and let the dense honeysuckle seize us deeper into the belly of those woods. We kept charging through and up to its limestone blowhole lookout point to view the skewed city spiderwebbed out to every horizon. Then we'd shoot all the way down the Persian rug of gold and orange leaves on our backs, the city and everything else falling away, eventually getting down to Mom, my eyes thunderstormed, my shame gone. Then we go home. And if sports were off, and if Daddy's team won, then right before SNL's Code Open, he would give LaRon and me the Who Daddy Makes the Best Popcorn quiz. We'd answer, you do, of course. That newfangled microwave corn of LaRon's suburbia couldn't stand up to Daddy's hot out of the pot masterpieces, each buttered and salted handful, a crunchy blessing. This next poem I'm reading is mostly because Kentucky and Ohio fall within this mountain range, but also tomorrow's Earth Day, so I thought I would put something sort of conscious in here. And I'm sorry, I have to flip through my book. And this poem is called Appalachian Smitten. Though she is more mature than her terrestrial sisters, Rocky, Andes, or Himalaya, though osteoporosis has set in on her nooks and valleys, she still survived mastectomies daily for decades. She is so grand. Not all her tears are slurry. Some of her kisses are still spring pure. Her rain-worn curves still the smoothest I've ever explored, still framing some of my most sensual moments, geologically speaking. She is Lena Horne, regal, eternal beauty. The next poem is the title poem from the book. A lot of people think I'm describing an anti-academic sentiment, in which it does seem like that on the surface, but there's some deeper stuff going on. The reason why it's named after the book is this poem sort of serves as an analogy for what happens in the book overall. This is called English Lit. English lit ain't never meant shit to me, a griot from urban decay. I care less about the way the Middle English or even their contemporaries display their masturbation, AKA mastery of a native tongue sprung from sliced together stolen components of failed conquest thirsty cultures. Meanwhile, I carry a $80 leather-bound 50-pound edition that I don't even read, sitting in classrooms full of white girls who aspire to be teachers or pontificating writers like the self-absorbed ones up front, jacking their egos for hours straight about the imagined, intricate, insignificant details of forced literary regurgitation and their slightly different postmodern imitations. They talk about my limitations on papers and in my daily speech, yet I still continue to reach to the streets, representing, even though they be hinting with C minuses and B pluses, that my attempts at writing should cease and desist. But my claim to fame is not only as a writer, but also an arsonist. Because every time that my pen and paper hit, I receive great joy at watching the Queen's English being lit. A lot of the book that I have here talks about family. Family is a big component. And I grew up in Louisville, but my lineage comes from the country. And so there were remnants of country elements in my life. This poem is called Grandma's Greens. On the forgotten side of a Babylon is where Grandma's garden hung. Shadowed by silo mountains, in earshot of smoky iron rivers, we left the asphalt to spend the growing season with her. Our young knees bent into turned earth. We built foliage cities of collard, mustard, and turnip by tossing embryos in ancient gridded rows as Grandma chanted incantations and bushy jade heads sprung from the dirt to swallow sun. The grandbabies' jobs were to harness aluminum clouds, to precipitate on the leaf palaces, to mine weeds with bent tridents, to defend the veiny structures from critters. But once the plants got waist high, Grandma would tell us to decapitate them all to the altar of kinfolk. And on the rim of dusk, in a screened porch temple over a carpet of newspaper, we pick their sturdy flesh clean from spindly stalks, squash any bugs, then have her anoint our offerings with her thorough inspections before she marches every emerald bushel into her cauldron of rolling aromatics, roots, and spices. The greens scream a bit, hitting the boiling water. Their leathery texture softens as they drown, sending out unseen signals to relatives all the way in Newburgh, down to Alabama, Houston, even my home, blocks away. The hairs on our necks stand on end when another pot brews, and sooner or later we find ourselves around a too small table in a too small house, and everyone's just fine. We can't resist the polarity of those steaming plates of Grandma's hocus pocus. that she passes like an heirloom across several generations. Even after her matriarchal reign, grandbabies and their babies will practice the high art of potioning greens and conjuring family. So the next poem is a list poem that talks about public transit in Louisville. It's called I Still Ride the TARC. And TARC stands for Transit Authority of River City. Just a little note for you. River City is Louisville. I still ride the TARC buses with their pissy smelling seats, gum stuck to feet, odor of butt and malt liquor, overhead fluorescent light flickers, back bench full of shopping bags, seats tattooed with graffiti tags, redundant ringing of stop bells, old vets spitting tall tales, lanes in flyaway collars, dudes peeping girls itching to holler, grease spots on the window that seep from hair, from bums stretched out asleep who just don't care. Little badass kid screams, old lady evil eye beams, headphones blasting until ears are sore, old transfers and pay stubs littering the floor, disproportionate abundance of the Black race, bus drivers clutching cans of mace. When shipping us goods from the hoods to the malls, this concrete ship rarely stalls, rushing us to serve on the trip out, our bodies be en route, economically packed from the front to the back, and them raising the price all the time to be middle passage confined in the belly of the steel beast. And when us suburban laborers are released by drivers late, they demonstrate an attitude. That's when I get rude. Because on the way back to our shanty township, the buses break down and be ill-equipped, worn seat vinyl and bald tires, and drivers who in 2 days will retire. So I get home at midnight, my work journey hours equaling 10, and the next day, guess what? I gotta do it all again. Just the blase on that TARC every day. Why? It's my only way. So again, I'm gonna come back for the final poem. I'm gonna come back to the family theme, but also it's about a piece of furniture. And I'm hoping, or I know history has told me that most people can identify with this because you either have an aunt or an uncle or somebody who has a piece of furniture like this in their house. This is called the good couch. In the living room sat the couch, one of them splurge items, an oatmeal tweed burlap thing purchased spontaneously at Value City. And for the good couch reason, my parents covered it with a sheet of plastic, a foggy, heavy synthetic skin that rustled with every motion. When summer smothered up, scorching hot days, back when home AC was a myth to me, something not felt but alluded to on TV, on those simmering evenings, prime time bubbled across blue flickering screens, couch filled to capacity with family, and box fans propped in windows, making our house a convection oven. We would broil on that couch as its transparent epidermis bonded with our bare arms, and legs, so that, of course, I would have to wait until the next commercial break, because the sound of me ripping clean from the Velcro couch would have drowned out the TV a bit, and everyone would have thrown a fit, because Cosby might have said something witty in his air-conditioned brownstone. Thank y'all all for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
I wasn't ready for you to quit, Bernard. I was just so mesmerized. Oh my goodness, the music. I kept writing down cadence, cadence, cadence. Just, oh, the music and all the magics. And I love, I myself write about the granny women. My grandmother also had the gift of, of working in the ground and understanding and planting by the signs and all those wonderful things that you were talking about as well. So I took some notes, of course, again, because I love to do that. And the fact that that I loved your poem about the Appalachians and comparing it to osteoporosis and mastectomies, and the fact that not all of her tears are slurry, that just absolutely genius. And hearing you read these poems that I read, as always, is just so fulfilling, because, you imagine how a person sounds, but to actually hear them is just such a gift. And I thank you for that. Sharing English Lit with us, of course, that whole forced literary regurgitation, I love that. But you reach for the streets, you reach for your sense of place, you reach for your values, and I love that. And you're not afraid to speak the Queen's English, because that's what it was, right? We brought all of that with us when we all came here to Appalachia. We brought the Queen's English, and we're still speaking it in many, many ways. And I love that so much. I love, I could go on and on about the granny women, grandma's hocus pocus, potting greens, conjuring family, grandma's chanting incantations in the garden, which speaks directly to ancestry, all the heritage that we are privileged to have, many of us. And then that visual you gave us. I'm sorry, I'm talking so fast, Joe. I'm sorry, because I'm so excited. And the poor ASL, she's just going like this because I'm going too fast. What you said about young knees bent to turned earth, that visual, I have knelt with my grandmother. I knelt, I should say, of course she's gone, but all those times I knelt with her. And I knew then it was spiritual, but even now it's even more so, because those are the times when those memories come back that I feel the most loved and the most connected to my people and the earth. So thank you for sharing that as well. I love the poem in which you allude to the safari, your neighborhood being a safari, and that outside your neighborhood was where the real animals were. And that really hit me. And, bravo to you for writing it. I loved the idea of, having to go to church on Sundays. Of course, I had to do that too. And the droning desired to shame me. That's so perfect. And then that beautiful story about your father. And if his team won, he'd be in a great mood and he'd say, "Who's the best popcorn making daddy?" Bernard, thank you so much. And blessings to you and your family and for your yield in the gardens and the pastures this year. Thank you for being a farmer. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it. And thank you for all the kind words. It's very humbling. Thank you.
Well, you deserve every single one of them. And I'm just so excited to have this book. And I hope everybody buys it tonight and everybody who watches better buy one. So thank you, Bernard. Oh my goodness. So what an evening we are having, but it is National Poetry Month. And this is what we expect, right? The very best of the best. And next, poet, playwright, and editor. Linda Parsons is the poetry editor for Madville Publishing and reviews editor for Pine Mountain Sand and Gravel. She is copy editor for Chapter 16, the literary website of the Humanities Tennessee. Linda has been published in such journals as the Georgia Review, Iowa Review, Prairie Schooner, Southern Poetry Review, the Chattahoochee Review, Baltimore Review, Shenandoah. In other words, every single fabulous place there is to submit one's work and be accepted, Linda has been accepted there. Her fifth poetry collection is called Candescent from Iris Press, and I have this beautiful copy of this book, which Linda gifted to me and signed. It's just absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous book. And I really hope that you all, if you haven't already bought it, you certainly must. And as I mentioned earlier, Linda and I met during my quick dip down to Knoxville. And on that fateful weekend in 2019, which actually was about just a handful of months away from pandemic, but our friendship has flourished and grown. And this is because Linda, with her grace and her patience, has taught me some very valuable life lessons. And I get a little emotional when I think about it. Linda's work is exemplary and it's beloved by so many, as is Linda. And I'm not going to keep going because I'm getting a little blubbery and I'm talking too fast again. But I'm truly beside myself in welcoming my dear friend, Linda Parsons.
Oh, Carrie, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. Stewart's Opera House, I hope to be able to see it in the flesh one day and see you all. Carrie, we're learning from each other all the time. And I'm so glad you decided to jump in that car and come down to Knoxville to our WordStream show with Stella Sue Lee. That was the beginning of a beautiful friendship for us. And as you say, it still grows. And I'm just terribly grateful for that. So I will describe myself. I'm another pale-skinned female here with white hair and silver glasses. And it's like I'm turning silver these days all over. And that's okay with me because light, seeking the light, being the light has become everything for me these days, these last few years. So I'm wearing a floral printed top of brown, white, and blue. And I'm an 8th generation Tennessean. So I'm also a longtime gardener, and I use a lot of gardening images in my work, which you'll hear. Light around trees in morning. So much light, I think it's caught fire. The paperbark maple self-immolating, but it's only the coppery scrolls silhouette facing east. Someone once important to me planted this tree, led friends to this very spot as if it were the only blaze, the garden's only crown. Importance ebbs in time, keeping its own mystery, and we're left on our knees in cinders, smoldering ash, as I was, turning to what's more important, clover in the iris, overrun with thyme and chocolate mint, the scrawl of minor serpents to read and expel. A woman alone makes good headway in the weeds, a corona of flame, unscrolling like seraphim swords at the entrance of nothing and everything Edenic. Sometimes I think light comes only when we're bowed too low to notice our leaves and limbs burnished by morning, our bodies in spontaneous combustion. In a poem from my father, I wanted to use a little of James Agee's prologue from A Death in the Family, A.G. being a Knoxville native. We are talking now of summer evenings in Knoxville, Tennessee, in the time I lived there, so successfully disguised to myself as a child. The hissing of Knoxville lawns. Off Broadway, north of the city, I carry jugs to my assigned neighborhood tree, the wine-colored chokeberry. Hobbled in 93 degrees, I breathe in the cool sewer, its rush to First Creek, then the forks coil to form the Tennessee. I left my mother's people in the Nashville Basin for Knoxville at 11, straddled the Cumberland Plateau, surged like the muddy river to get here en route. I wait till dusk to water my own trees, redbud, dogwood, paperbark maple, uncoil the hose like A.G.'s father on Highland Avenue, a little bit mixed sort of block. All the fathers out on their summer lawns, collars removed and necks shy. The bright bell of spray, a call and response to cicadas' risen whine. Like my own father, using the old name hosepipe, rinsing the road off the Buick, home from traveling the Southeast, the satchel and pamphlets unpacked. We don't think of these moments. How I sat snug as the car warmed up, as he scraped the winter ice. How the hose rang in his hands those dusty days. Until we stand in that very spot and open the spigot until the arc of water is pure rainbow, peach to indigo, and we are carried back and back to ourselves undisguised. Airing it out, I take myself to the sun, though I was never a child of the sun, basted with copper tone like the Sunday bird. A day in June, I find a crook hidden from street and neighbors, from the waning pandemic, aloneness, my essential oil and scent. What do I think I'm doing? Unlatching the garden gate where ivy twines and clay clots, bare-assed, my knees flailed to noon, where I peer into the pelvic doorway, my mother's spread eagle under the heat lamp to heal her episiotomy stitches where they cut my sister out. My grandmother shushes me away. You don't need to see that. But I do. I need to see the wound closed and glossy. I need that sear, that high candescence, to be other than my mother, regret clamped inside her walls until they mildewed for lack of light. I need to be done, scars and all, on a pallet in my own backyard, open as linen on the line. The corona radiates its 1,000,000 degrees. Solar flares burn distances I cannot fathom. After the long virus winter, how can I be anything but sun-warm skin and bone, down to my brightening folds, down to the naked earth? I wrote this next poem after hearing how so many people were going to their dentist because so much stress during this uncertain time. They're cracking their teeth, they're grinding their teeth, cracking fillings and crowns. Night Guard. Who knew my dreams needed reining in, galloping symbol and precipice, until after decades of TMJ, my jaw began to crumble. Like so many of these pandemic days who clench and grind, crack molars and fillings, I click the new Night Guard in place to stay the bone loss. Though at 3 a.m., I spit this foreign bit on the extra pillow, ride on, unhaltered. I dream no fear at the departure gate, shoulder to shoulder as in my old life, breathing the same air, off to the Midi-Pyrenees near Toulouse, along the ancient pilgrimage. But there's a summer snow, at least a foot, and I didn't pack boots. My parents would send them, but they're off being new incarnations, and I'll never again hear their voices. DiMaggio's fly ball at Sulphur Dell, nutmeg, not clove, in the cobbler. Except the wishing voice in my head, mouth locked in stasis. I'll never know whether night guards or hogties me, lathered to the brink of prayer, staying neither hope nor hate, whether the watches hover until I awaken, or if in the wee hours and more gnashing of teeth, I can't help myself and spit it out. So last summer, we had the Brood X cicadas, and they seem to be everywhere around my neighborhood, except within the neighborhood. So they kind of missed our little pocket here. And I do love cicadas. So I was very happy when the regular cicadas started up, as they normally do. Everywhere and nowhere at once. On day 11 of the Chopra 21-day meditation series, the Sanskrit mantra Om Shanti says, I radiate perfect peace. Well, tell that to the basement guys jackhammering concrete for new drainage pipes and pump the years-old seep of groundwater into floor and foundation. Through the harangue of metal on rock, joists rattle their tibias, teacups their saucers. Deepak urges me to access deep peace from within. His silk voice prods me to befriend the sound, to be the Sufi of sound. Silk woven into rope, saying to pull myself from the shattered past, hand over hand, into good air, to stand in the only now, everywhere and nowhere at once. From the sodden earth, I re-emerge with Brood X cicadas feeding on roots these 17 winters entombed, an ecstasy of wings starved for summer. Maples and oaks and trumpet vine vibrate their dervish of brief being. And I, reaching down to my damp cellar, release all the noise, the unrequited, the unforgiven. My new body trembles, flooded with sun. So I want to thank you, Bernard, for reminding me that tomorrow is Earth Day, because this is a perfect poem for Earth Day. Sometimes it's good to go out in your yard or in the woods and make physical contact with the earth, with your bare feet on the grass, on the dirt, and that's called earthing. October foot washing. One foot on stone, the other on clover. Earthing, it's called, into the basin of yard, bare-hearted and footed. The cool shocks my bones. If I root my fallen arches here in the garden, it will be as I dreamed this morning, my grandmother sitting on the floor. How will I ever get her up? A woman plumped on fatback and fried pies. But she is the sacral ground, saying to take it all in. The bee-heavy cones of Budleia, monarch's last fling before the Sierra Madres. Things I've lost to careless love, saying to release the body's springs to their subterranean source. Back before my sullen distance, the red, red rose of grief pinned to my sleeve. Back when I thought if I ever bowed far enough in supplication, I'd never get up. Fall unleaves its script, inking my heels in the art of dying. The year spins down to ash and ice. Early dew washes my feet. The underworld rushes below. The wild cherry calls the fence. Jerusalem daisies reach above. For what is earth but a tangled bouquet lit to its core? What am I but a conduit of ions, the stories that no longer serve me, sent back and back to the karst, the anthill, the prints left overnight, vanished to shadow. So I'll end with a seasonal piece, even though Easter is just past, it's not too long past. So this is a little Easter poem, which I think goes beyond Easter. Deviled eggs for Easter. Though we've returned to the church house, backsliding from immersion to Methodist wine to Buddha of the cornfield, you say, don't forget the deviled eggs. For the devil still in us, I drop the 12 in their boiling font. Resistant shells veined as the underside of my knees clack together, sweet communion rising from the pot. In praise of the breakable among us, I slice thin armor, the warm heart's yolk and albumin, tithe spicy brown mustard. In gratitude of the fire, I hollow once liquid suns, pliable as clay, reborn with relish and paprika. For belief in the everlasting feast, on my tongue I take bread, swallow the body and the passion. For my place is set so long at the table, the roundness of plate and chalice, I cup each yellow eye in my faltering reach. Thank you all. What a joy to be here and share this evening with you.
Oh, y'all are killing me tonight. This is so wonderful. Linda, oh, thank you so much. So beautiful. I couldn't write fast enough. I love this. Who knew my dreams needed reining in? Does that not just completely capture the pandemic and, you know, all of us, these vivid dreams that occurred especially early on as we all were clenching our jaws and dealing with all of that. and our ruminations and our memories that came with all of that. And I love that you said, whether night guards me or hog ties me. And that is so very true. And then, of course, I wanted to comment because I know about your big love of cicadas. And your very first dream, or your very first poem brought in cicadas when you were talking about your, I think, are you getting a reverb from me? Can you hear a reverberation when I talk? Okay. The call and response of cicadas you talked about when you were having the thinking back about your dad and his Buick and him washing the road off the car. I love that. I love this line. Sometimes I think light comes only when we are bowed low, when we are bowed too low. Bowed too low. That was so beautiful. And we are carried back to ourselves, undistinguished. Oh, such beautiful lines. I take myself to the sun, a crooked, hidden aloneness, my essential oil and scent, all that talk about regret. And then I also wanted to say, amen to earthing. I love that. If I'm rooting my fallen arches here in the garden, and then all of a sudden there is your grandmother, because we have our grannies, they are so important to us, generations of them. The sacred ground, the wild cherry calls, and then leaving those with those deviled eggs. And you too, Linda, the church, which is just so ingrained in all of us who are raised in, the Appalachian areas of the country. And, every holiday is the church, and every holiday is the deviled eggs.
Right.
And so it was just so perfect. And the three of you were just so perfect tonight. And my thinking was maybe we would all put on our video and our mics now. And I might ask you all a few questions if you don't mind. And if anybody in the audience has a question, feel free to put it in the Q&A. And I'm sure people will be very happy to answer the questions. And Bernard's reminding us too to again thank Joe and Nico for their hard work tonight, especially when I got so excited about Bernard, and poor Joe was practically having to stand on her head in order to use her toes and her fingers. So I thank you both so much, Nico and Joe. So I don't see anything in the Q&A just yet, so I'll get things rolling and then we'll see. So Stella Sue, I was going to kind of start with you because I know that you do a lot, you offer a lot of workshops. You have great experience in that. You're really good at helping people sort of get out of their block or get out of the blocks to get going, and also get over their block when they may not be able to write for a while. And I know that you're pretty well known for your workshops. So I thought maybe you could tell us a little bit about that and how people might be able to find out where to sign up and that sort of thing. Oh, we need to turn your mic on. Here we go.
There?
Yes.
Saturday, I'm going to be teaching a workshop for the Knoxville Writers Group. Is that right? Knoxville Writers
Guild.
Thank you. On a workshop that I've actually taught all over the country called Saying the Unsayable. And of course, so much of our lives we do put down on the paper, and so much of it, there's so much grief and hardship. And how do we express that? And so this is a workshop that I really hope gives permission to people to write from their heart and to kind of forget about everything that we're taught about sentence structure, what we think poetry is, but to really write from the heart. And yeah, so, and I really believe in journaling.
Stella Sue, can they get to your workshops from your website? Everything's there on your website, right?
Oh, well, I haven't had quite time to get around to that.
Okay.
But
So
they
how-
can look up the Knoxville Writers Guild and it's there, or go to my Facebook page and the information is there as well.
Wonderful. That's what we wanted to know. And I'm going to go ahead and put everybody's book back on here too, so that everybody will know where to order your books. Everybody's books there.
Thank you.
Yes, my pleasure. My goodness. Okay, Bernard, I wanted you to tell folks, because I find that a lot of people do not know, which it seems crazy to me that they don't, but actually a lot of people don't know much about the Afroluction Poets, kind of how it got its start, and all the amazing things y'all are doing, because you do a lot of readings and a lot of other stuff that people should know about.
Yep. Well, it started at University of Kentucky, probably in the early 90s. Frank X. Walker, Crystal Wilkinson, Nikki Finney are some of the grandfathers, so to speak, of the Afrolutions, or the grandmothers. And it's been a collective that has been around giving voice to the unseen people of Appalachia. Frank tells a story of how when he looked up the definition of Appalachia or Appalachian, it said a white resident of the Appalachian Mountains. And he felt sort of left out by that. And so he invented this word to sort of fill in the gap that existed. And so as of right now, we are still sort of growing. We're having a new membership class of new poets and writers coming in this year. And we continue to do readings all over the region. We're gonna do a reading at our governor's school this year, the Kentucky Governor's School for the Arts. And I think there's a few more readings, but yeah, it's been a growing, thriving community. It's probably over 200 people now that are associated with the group, probably. So yeah, it's been a great honor to be a part of it. And it's good to go out and evangelize in other areas where there might be Afrolutions in Ohio, and maybe we can attract some through this reading. I know Crystal read here not too long ago. So anyway, yeah, I didn't want to talk too long, sorry.
No, that's what we're here for. This is that portion of the evening when we just get to chat. So thank you, because like you, I always start out a lot of my talks by saying, has anybody ever just Googled what is the definition of Appalachia? And it says white hill people, more or less. And the 1930 census actually did list Appalachians as exactly that, white hill people. Mm-hmm. So we need to make that clear. We need to say we have just all kinds of folks here in Appalachia, and the good work that you all are doing is really getting the word out. And I for one, really appreciate that, and love the voices, love the stories. And like I said, many of them overlap in some ways, which is heartwarming, so. And of course, we all love Frank X, of course. So he's kind of a hero. Yep. Okay, Miss Linda, I have one for you because you are a poet, and that's how I first knew you. And then as I got to know you, I became aware that you are also a playwright. Mm-hmm. And so I'm wondering, how does that Give us some insights into your journey. You know, were you first a poet and then a playwright? Were you a playwright and then a poet, or did they emerge at the same time? Give us some inside story here.
Yeah, I started writing seriously in the early 1980s. And they kind of started at about the same time. I've always loved plays, but I've never really wanted to be on stage. So I started writing some plays, and I was doing poetry at the same time and reading in the early readings in Knoxville in the early 80s, and kind of at the beginning of that in many ways. And so it's grown over the years. There's a wonderful, strong writing community here in Knoxville. But I've been really fortunate over the last, I guess 7-8 years to be involved with the Flying Anvil Theater in Knoxville. And I will have my 5th play produced there very soon. I've been a part of a creative team, and we interviewed ordinary people in Knoxville of all professions, and we've compiled a series of interviews and kind of with narratives to tie all of that together. And we're calling it the Knoxville COVID Story Project. So it's all of our individual and collective experiences in living through the pandemic so far. And so we realized as we were writing it and pulling it all together that we're still in the middle of it. We're still, even though numbers are going down, we're not out of those woods yet. So anyway, so we brought our own experiences into the piece, and it's been wonderful. I think it's helped all of us who've been involved. And it will be produced as a reading April the 28th through May the 8th at Flying Anvil in Knoxville. So yeah, it's been a wonderful association for me, and I'm very grateful for that, because I don't know, there's something that makes me feel even more alive in my writing when I'm working on a play than poetry. It's just a little bit different. Although there is music and poetry on the stage and dialogue, you know, I love repetition. I love picking up certain words that characters pick up, you know, the same words. I like to do that. And I think that's kind of the poet in me coming out, you know. So it's been a nice journey to combine both poetry and playwriting. So thank you for asking. That's a great question.
Oh my goodness, I'm in awe of you being able to do that. I'm in awe of people who can write poetry and essays too. I mean, and you do that as well. So it's pretty incredible. Stella Sue, I wanted to, maybe you're just sick to death about talking about it, but I'm so fascinated that you were the co-creator of Rattle, which is by far one of the best magazines in the country. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Is it something that you enjoy talking about? Or?
Well, sure. I got together with Alan Fox, who is the editor-in-chief of Rattle. And at the time, he was talking about taking a few class poems from Jack Grafe's class in Venice and putting together a chapbook, and maybe charging a couple bucks from everybody that had a poem in there, and then they could get they could buy some chapbooks for a couple bucks more, and could print, staple and fold, and then they'd have something to sell at a reading that if they didn't have a book. And I remember sitting in Alan's office and going, Alan, where the heck are you going with this thing? And he said, well, I don't know. Where would you want to go? And I said, well, if I'm going to put that kind of effort into something, I'm going to turn it into a leading literary journal of the United States. And he says, can you do that? I said, I don't know. but I've never undertaken anything that I didn't pour my heart and soul into and turn it into something to be proud of. And I couldn't see where a weekend work of putting together a chapbook was going to blow my hair back, you know. And so we just dove in. And then it just got ridiculous because I was getting 10,000 submissions a year with 3 to 10 poems per submission. And I had met, I was just working 7 days a week, literally 20 hours a day. And I met my future husband, and people who know me well said, "Whoa, how did you meet this guy? Did he have a car accident and drive through your front windows? I mean, how did you even meet somebody?" And so I hired an assistant, and I hired Tim Green. Thought he was a young, talented guy and would bring, and I was an old white woman, and I thought he would bring some modern, pizzazz to Rattle, and I think he's done that. And I got married and wanted a life, and so, and I'd taken Rattle really further than anybody thought I could. So, yeah.
Well, I'll say you did, girl. It's just an amazing story. I'll never tire of hearing that story. It's just, and in the time you were doing it, it's not like you had the internet, I mean, we're talking about word of mouth and really hard work and getting the word out and building that reputation. And it's just amazing. And then choosing the right people like Tim and Megan Green, who himself has now dedicated his life and both their lives to it.
Yes.
Which is just tremendous. So thank you for that. And as I said, Stella Sue, you really have, changed people's lives and made so many dreams come true. So thank you for that. Thank you.
I think I have. It was one of the great pleasures of my position to be able to pick up the phone and call people from time to time and tell them how impressed I was with their work. It was so rewarding.
Oh, wonderful. Oh my goodness. Okay, I got one more for you, Bernard, because I guess nobody's going to chirp up tonight. So I was reading that your book was 20 years in the making, and I've heard other people say that they have that they might bring out a poem that they had written years and years ago, but I just thought, I didn't know, and if it's too personal a question, you certainly don't have to answer, but I wondered if you might want to tell us a little bit about that. 20 years in the making.
It's really a credit to my editor, Nayoka Hawkins. She's known me for 20 years. She met me when I was very, very young, and she heard a lot of these poems and was always like, "Hey, I have a press." And she had just put out Afroluction, and she was working on her husband during Norman's book. And she was like, "Hey, I really think, you have some stuff here. So whenever you want to make a book, just let me know." I sort of went into corporate America and got swallowed up there for a few years. But I was still writing on and off. And so our vision was to sort of take some of the older poems. And then when I got to the MFA, take some of my newer poems and sort of have a conversation between versions of myself about the trials and tribulations of growing up Black in Kentucky. And so that was sort of the catalyst behind it all. And I sort of it did take 20 years, and that is sort of odd. It's usually, it's a more famous writer would have a collection of their work that has appeared in multiple volumes. But I sort of deliberately sort of put this all together to sort of give a memoir, I guess. But it's not so much a memoir. But yeah, so it's not embarrassing at all. I sort of, I like how long it took, and just the difference in voice that you get, as though the intent is still the same. So yeah, thank you for asking that question. That's something I often talk about when I'm giving the reading.
Yes, and for the record, I didn't think you were embarrassed about it. I just thought it might be sensitive, like maybe some of it was painful for you or something. So I didn't want to.
Oh, yeah. No, sorry about that.
No. I just wanted to be sure. And also, I agree with you. I think that you do get these different voices, the different voices of you, as time has passed, from when you were young and as you grew and things that occurred in your life. And I think that's just wonderful. And I love that idea that that all of a sudden someone said to you, okay, it's time, Bernard, let's have that book. It's kind of like you would have just kept writing until somebody said, hey, we want that book now. It's time. So give us that book. And I'm just so glad you did. So thank you so much, Bernard, for giving us that book. Oh. And then, Linda, I thought we should take one moment for you to say a little something, about Madville and Kim and everybody there and the wonderful vision and purpose of the press and all they're doing there, all y'all are doing.
Right. Well, thank you. I've been working with Kim for about, I guess, close to 2 years now. And although I did sort of tangentially before I went onto the staff, but I have more of a, I'm in the poetry box, so I don't deal with the fiction or the memoir, any of that. But I mean, she's just going full guns, and I'm so amazed at her and proud of her. And she's so wonderful to work with. She's so easy and down to earth and smart and kind and everything. I'm really lucky to work with her. And I trust her and she trusts me. And so I'm very happy to, in fact, recently in an email, she called me a midwife, poetry midwife. And I agree completely with that. And I love it. I get to see some of the manuscripts early on, like we just had our first poetry annual competition. I suggested to Kim that we do a memorial prize, an annual prize in the name of Arthur Smith, who was a longtime professor of poetry of creative writing at UT Knoxville. And so we just have our first winner of the Arthur Smith competition, and it's Lisa Parker, who is she's a native Virginian and very deep roots in Appalachia. And in fact, Kim seems to have a real affinity for Appalachian poets. And so I'm very happy about that. I brought her Catherine Smith, who was raised in Knoxville. I brought her, Pauletta Hansel brought herself. And then I said, yes, we do want you, Pauletta. So, and I work with the poets, both not as much content, although I might suggest a little bit, but it's mainly copy editing and getting the manuscript in as perfect a form as we possibly can. And a beautiful book. And of course, Madville is great in promotion. I think anyone who lands there is very lucky. So anyway, but thank you for asking that. It's I feel it's part of my mission and joy in life. Like Stella Sue said, it was so rewarding for her to be able to to publish these poets who are, they're doing their hearts and their life's work on the page. And I feel that I'm doing the same thing with Madville. So it is very rewarding, and I'm really, happy and honored to be able to do it. So Yeah, go Kim Davis with Madville Press and read their books and see who's in the catalog. We have, I think Susan Underwood is there with us tonight. She was the runner-up for the Arthur Smith competition. Her collection will be published as well, along with Lisa's. And she has a new novel, her first novel, coming out from Madville as well. So just really proud of that, really happy about that.
Oh, I think you should be. And I love that a lot of the women you're working with are part of my Women of Appalachia project as well.
Yes,
so,
right.
so fun to see everyone doing so well.
Yeah, it's a very small connected world. I love it.
It really is. It really is. We have a few more minutes. Do any of you have a question for each other? No, I've probably talked your ear off at this point, haven't I?
Oh, it's good. It's all good.
Well, I will tell you that next month, which will be the last reading for this season, we have Appalachian's own Marianne Worthington. Doug Van Gundy will be doing some poetry and some music for us, and Nima Ashiva, who's got a new book out, What It's Like Growing Up Indian, Appalachian, and Queer. And I think it's a wonderful book. And that's May 19th. So I look forward to having everybody back next month. And we'll be posting all that information in the registration link as well. So I hope you all come. Thank you to all of our guests. I really could not have asked for anything finer than this evening and the three of you. It's just been astounding. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's just all wonderful.
And I want to,
everyone.
And I, of course, want to again thank Stewart's Opera House for hosting us, and the Ohio Arts Council for also sponsoring, and to Nico and Joe for their beautiful dancing hands, and for making our program accessible for everyone to enjoy. And I want to send out lots of love to everyone on this National Poetry Month, and to encourage everyone to stay vigilant and be safe and have a wonderful month. And I'll see everybody back on the 19th. And thank you all so much. Good evening.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, everyone.